What up, all my fight fans? So, I know Francis Ngannou did an interview not that long ago, or made a statement not that long ago, and I want to talk to you guys about it. He's mentioned that he wants to box again, and he really, really is determined to make the boxing fight with Deontay Wilder. And I really feel like that's by far the best fight he could possibly win against. Like that is by far the best fight for him, I should say, because you got Deontay Wilder, who isn't necessarily a great boxer. He has some skill. Let's face facts. He was able to get through the division and become champion of the world for a reason, and the big reason is because of his power. Because the guy has some strong knockout power. He was able to put down Tyson Fury quite a few times. I think it was 4 times together on all the 3 fights that they did together. And he's been able to knock out a lot of other opponents that he went toe-to-toe with as well. So that right there says a lot. We all know Francis Ngannou, the hardest hitting man in all of sports. I don't care what they say. I feel like Francis Ngannou is by far the hardest punching fighter, both in boxing and MMA. 100%. So you got 2 guys who are going to knock each other out. Now, this fight could be a really good fight, or it could be a very boring fight, because they both know they can knock each other out, and I'm sure they're both not going to necessarily want to go after each other right away. They're going to probably take the time. They're probably going to be like, hey, you know what? I don't want to take any chances because this guy can knock me out. And they're both going to tell each other that, for sure. So, like I said, it could go either way. It could go where these guys are going to slug it out, like where they're going to take a little chances and try to knock each other out, or it could be very, very boring. But nonetheless, I feel like that's by far the most winnable fight for Francis Ngannou. More so than the Tyson Fury fight, more so than the Anthony Joshua fight. With Tyson Fury making the decision to finally box, we all know the drama that was behind the scenes when it came to the UFC and Dana White. But we all got to agree it was by far the best decision, I should say, the best decision for Francis Ngannou to do this boxing thing, because the guy has made some bank. Maybe he didn't make as much as we all thought he did against the Tyson Fury fight. I'm sure he made quite a bit in the Anthony Joshua fight. And if this fight does take place again, does take place with Deontay Wilder, he is definitely going to make another big bag of money. He's probably going to make a good 10-20 million. All 3 fights, I guarantee you, he's accumulated close to $80 million, $60 to $80 million. That is a lot in 3 fights. Of that money he would have never seen in the UFC. I don't care what. It would have took him a 20-fight deal in order to get that kind of money, for sure. Regardless of what they are going to tell you, you were never going to see that type of money in the UFC. And that's not saying anything bad against the UFC. That's not saying like they underpay their fighters, because they were going to pay him very well. Rumor around the campfire is that rumor around is that he was going to get $7 million per fight. Who knows how many fights he was going to fight? We don't know the details of the contract. I'm sure there's a lot more details to the contract. I'm sure there was a lot more, hidden messages in the contract. We don't know. You always got to wonder a little bit, because there's always a little fine print that you really got to read regarding boxing and MMA. So, but nonetheless, I heard it was $7 million, and that's still pretty good money. But hey, in 3 fights, if he did that, he would have got 21 million plus whatever bonuses and percentages and whatnot that he would have gotten, maybe a good 30 million. Again, Francis Ngannou made close to 60 million, if not more. Well, let's just face facts. He probably made well over $50 million in these next 3 fights, or in the 3 fights that he is going to be having in boxing, or had. And here's another one. Maybe Tyson Fury will return, because we've been hearing also rumors that Tyson Fury wants to return. This whole thing about retiring, we all know it's bull. That's why I never even made a video on it. It's just some way to get maybe a little bit more money on Tyson Fury's side. But nonetheless, if he does return, I'm sure he wants a little get back. He wants to show the people that, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't take Francis Ngannou serious enough. He did drop me, and I'm going to show you I could drop him. I'm going to show you I could stop him. And that will be a bigger bag for Francis Ngannou, because he's going to, that's a rematch. It's going to be a big, massive fight, because we know what happened in the first fight. So, yes, 100%. And especially if he can actually get past Deontay Wilder and win that fight, oh my God. You're looking at a good 50 million payday just for that fight alone in that rematch. So, yes, Francis Ngannou made the best decision not to allow the UFC to pretty much stop him from boxing. He didn't allow it to happen. But speaking of the UFC, he does want to face John Jones again. He really wants to face him. He says it's a potential that it can actually happen. that it's a possibility it can happen, I should say. And you know, I gotta agree with them. There's always a possibility a fight can happen. There's always a possibility if the companies want it, if the both fighters want it, it can always happen. But we all know the person that's pretty much stopping it from happening is Dana White. Now, I know Dana White has made it very clear that he tried to make that fight happen on multiple occasions, and we all know some of those occasions weren't necessarily true, and some of those occasions where Jon Jones wasn't around, and it was a big mess. It was a big mess of why that fight did not take place. But nonetheless, I feel like Dana White needs Francis Ngannou more than Francis Ngannou needs Dana White. See, Francis Ngannou made money. He's by far one of the biggest stars in all of combat sports, and he's a legend, and he's going into Hall of Fame. You know, especially if he could become some kind of boxing champion. I mean, it's very unheard of for an MMA fighter to do that. So it's a big statement. It's a big statement. And you know, right now in the UFC, the heavyweight division is by far the worst it's ever been, I personally feel. You know, back in the earlier days of the UFC, not the earlier days, but let's just say about maybe 10 years ago, give or take, you had Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar, Alistair Overeem, Verdum, Junior Dos Santos, Mark Hunt. There are so many great legends in the heavyweight division and so many great fights. Even Bigfoot Silva was in there, Stipe, DC, Arlovsky. There were just so many really fun fights that you could have in the heavyweight division. But now, as we see it, there really is not a whole lot of big names. There really isn't a whole lot of big stars. And Jon Jones is by far the biggest star. I mean, hell, we are hoping that Alex Pereira can move up to fight Jon Jones or Tom Aspinall. Because it's like, there really isn't a whole lot to be said in the heavyweight division. Now, if Dana White can really somehow cut a deal with Francis Ngannou and get Francis to come back over to the UFC, there are so many great matchups. You got Jon Jones multiple times that could happen. You got him and Tom Aspinall that multiple times could happen. Him and Alex Pereira that multiple times could happen. I mean, the heavyweight division could really be booming 100%. But sometimes pride gets in the way. Sometimes business gets in the way. And it sucks. It sucks because these are the fights we wanted to see. We always had fights that we always wanted to see. Whether it be Fedor versus Randy Couture, Fedor versus Brock Lesnar, George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva, maybe Anderson Silva versus Jon Jones, maybe Jon Jones versus Cain Velasquez. There's all these great fights that we could think of that we wanted to see, but we didn't really get to see. And we don't know really under the circumstances of why it didn't take place, but we need to not let that happen no more. We really need to let the fights that the fans want to see happen. And we want to see Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou for sure. I mean, maybe down the line, you never know. You never know. You know, because Dana White did not get along with Tito Ortiz. Dana White did not get along with a lot of people, and somehow he was able to make a deal with some of these fighters and some of these people. But hey, we all got to wait and see what happens. But there you guys have it. Let me know what you think about Francis Ngannou. Is he going to face Deontay Wilder or somebody else? Is he ever going to work with the UFC again? Let me know, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.